Hey, what is up everyone? This is Tyler G of Batman Figs on Instagram, and today's BTAS episode review is going to be on the episode titled Cold Comfort. Now, at the very beginning of this episode, we see a woman who has pieced together from old fossils a rare dinosaur, and it is on display, and it is not long before we see Mr. Freeze show up, and Mr. Freeze just destroys it by, of course, freezing it, and we see it crumble to the ground. And we see the lady is very distraught, and she cries out to Mr. Freeze, like, why? Why did you do this? And he just says, why not? So it sets the tone for the whole episode that Mr. Freeze, he's done. He's completely done. He just doesn't care. He wants to see people suffer. And we see Batman confront him, and Mr. Freeze almost kills him, but he says, I'll save this for a later day. And then we also see Mr. Freeze attend an opening for a man's work of art that took years for him to create, and he even says, he's too old to do another, like it would take too long. And Mr. Freeze shows up, and right in front of the man, he freezes the painting and he destroys it, and the man's just like crying over it. And Mr. Freeze just doesn't care, and he says, you know what? Gotham, prepare, like, whatever you want, whatever you love most, like, be prepared to lose it. Like, everyone's gonna suffer. So, Batman and Batgirl do some research, and they come to find that Mr. Freeze, his wife, Nora, she's recovered from her syndrome, and that she actually left Victor Freeze, and she has a husband, and she started a whole new life. So they assume that is the reason why he's gone off the rails, and why he is very upset and just doesn't care about anything anymore. And so they think that until they go to his hideout, and they get there and they see that he's kidnapped doctors, and they say that they were hired to stabilize his condition, so they didn't know that he was getting worse. And then his his girl, sidekicks, they find Batman and Batgirl, and they say, hey, Freeze, they're here. And we see a shadow of him walking on spider legs, and it's just a head. And it's just weird to see that at first, what the heck? It's just literally Mr. Freeze's head on spider legs. So it looks crazy, and Batgirl has a reaction that we would all have if we saw that. And he says, even though it's a weird look and I don't really like it, he does have a good line where he says, ironic, isn't it? After all I did to try to save and keep my wife whole, I end up like this. So even though it's a weird look and a lot of people find it odd, I mean, the line is good, and he still has a great episode overall. It's not the best after the first two from the original, but it's hard to top those. But this is an okay Mr. Freeze episode, and I won't give away the ending or anything else, but if you haven't checked this one out, it's a definite must. And Batman Beyond, if you've seen the Mr. Freeze episode there, this is a continuation it continues from this story as well. So that's another thing I like about all these episodes, is that they continue the story arc of the character as a whole. I would say, other than Mr. Freeze, Clayface had one of the better story arcs. Scarface and the Ventriloquist have a good story arc overall. They have 3 episodes. They have one in the new Batman Adventures, and that'll be tomorrow. So stay tuned for that, and might have an action figure review for you today as well. But until then, I will see you later. If you want to check out pictures, check out Batman Figs on Instagram, Batman FIGS, and I will see you soon.